All right, welcome back to the Tactical Pause podcast. I'm Kevin Price.
I'm Kevin Reed.
And if you haven't done so already, I definitely encourage you to subscribe to the channel. It's really the best way to support what we're doing here.
We're coming to you guys with it's breaking news to us. This is Sunday at 4 o'clock Central Time. Viktor Orbán has conceded the Hungarian elections. Now, for those of you who don't follow politics or don't follow international stories, let your intel guide here be a voice of reason for you. So, Viktor Orban has been the right wing darling of Europe for people like Benjamin Netanyahu, the Heritage Foundation, which has also supported Donald Trump and JD Vance, and also other right wing organizations throughout Europe, to include Vladimir Putin in Russia. He's been in power for 16 years. His ruling party's had a supermajority in Congress, in their legislative, I don't know if it's called a Congress, but in their legislative body, they've had a supermajority. That has all changed tonight. And it's been just a stunning defeat of the right wing. Now, if you're not Hungarian, what does this mean for you? Here in the United States, what it does show is that the influence that Donald Trump and the MAGA movement have on a global stage has been lessened. In fact, it's not effective. There's been a couple of polls from the BBC, and I'll find the graphic and put it on our Facebook page this week when I get to work tomorrow, that showed that after JD Vance showed up to campaign for Viktor Orban, his popularity actually went down significantly. What is it? So for us, that shows that the influence that the administration has on a global scale in what should have been a friendly environment has caused an actual loss. So what that shows now back here at home is that maybe Donald Trump isn't the deal maker that he purports to be. He's shown weakness on a global stage here. This affects also the Iran negotiations, and it's going to affect his endorsements in the midterms. Let's start with the Iran negotiations. With the Hungarians rejecting the influence of Donald Trump throughout the entirety of that campaign, and then actually showing that his influence has decreased the support for the current administration, you're going to see Iran use that as leverage. And how do they do that exactly? Well, for one, they know that he's not popular. So he's going to have to use a proxy. Usually, somewhere like Pakistan is a step up in this instance, or China, other nations like that are going to have to be brokering the deal. We no longer have the influence on the global stage, or at least this president doesn't, to influence an outcome of a deal. So no matter what he puts on Truth Social, no matter what he says, the influence isn't there for that threat to land. In the domestic elections, when you look at how Donald Trump has endorsed opponents of Thomas Massie or other Republicans in certain races, that support will also be lessened, because if you can't close a deal and you can't close an international election and you show that American foreign power is soft, then it usually translates to the domestic influence of that president being soft as well. So on May 19th, when Thomas Massie's, who's in Kentucky, when that primary happens, if he were to win, and even if it's by a slim margin, that typically follows the downfall of that administration. What that will show the Republican Party is what we hope it shows, is that Trump is a lame duck president, his influence has waned, and that they would be right to break ranks from him. And the way the indicators you might be looking for here are some people like Susan Collins or others who are going to be in tight races calling for the 25th Amendment, or calling for Trump to step down, calling for investigations, that kind of stuff. When you start seeing headlines like that, start thinking that Republicans are realizing that Trump's power has been evaporated, and it is largely starting to be on the outskirts of history. Now, that doesn't mean that he can't still do damage. He absolutely can. I think that we should all expect that the worst that could happen will, but God willing, right? I don't believe in God, but like, you know, luck willing, we don't, we don't have like a nuclear launch or anything like that. But hopefully, that the support waning means that he just sits there, frumped over his chair, drinking his Diet Cokes.
I learned just recently about Orban, and from what I can tell, he's just everything a Trump supporter would love. He's a fascist, Christian nationalist, authoritarian asshole who like just embodies everything that they're all about. And I know they've been supporting him pretty strongly, and a lot of people have not voted against him in the past because of fear of any kind of retribution and things like that. And I think what you're saying is absolutely true. The fact that he lost, especially after getting the support of Donald Trump and JD Vance going there, just shows how much Trump's influence is weakening, and it's showing all over. I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene was one thing, but it's growing more and more. There's Candace Owens and fucking Alex Jones, which I never thought I'd see. If Alex Jones is pretty fucking nutty, and for for him to break with Trump, it just I think speaks volumes. So I think you're absolutely right. The problem here is it's not just the representatives. I think the voters have a harder time breaking with Donald Trump than the politicians do because the politicians get to see him on the ground, like what he's fucking up. But the voters are just so indoctrinated by the Trump administration. And I'm not saying that some won't break from him. Obviously there will be, but man, there's some that are just on it till the wheels fall off, you know?
It does. It's like, I don't know. The Matrix was the first one was such a good movie to me. I was 16 when it came out. And I always reference this when I think about Trump voters and the MAGA movement, the people who are still supporting Trump. It's like, it's the same at the end of the Matrix. Like, what are you going to do with the people who can never be unplugged? I think if you look at how things are moving and how the MAGA movement has assembled itself and how it's now fractured, I don't think it's unwise to say that the majority of the support that propelled Trump to the White House a second term is gone. It's mostly evaporated. So you've got this core percentage of voters, maybe 15 to 20%, but they're never going to leave him. And once he's gone, like, what do you do with those people? How do you insulate, not just for their safety, but for everybody else? Because they're not living an objectable reality. They're living in this fantasy land of right wing propaganda where, the liberals or the libs or the Democrats are doing all this evil stuff, and it's just not based in reality. I think that's a real question that we're going to have to answer as a society moving forward. Like, what are we going to do? How do we help these people?
As far as helping Republicans, man, I don't know what we could do. There's so much evidence right in front of their faces, not just with this administration, but they've bought into a certain rhetoric. And I think we were talking about this a little bit the other day. They always throw out the same things like the Democrats are the party of slavery. The Democrats are the party of the Confederacy. They have a distorted perception of reality and they're going to mold it to make sense for them. Because if you go to a Trump rally, you're going to see tons of Confederate flags.
Oh, yeah.
And the people that were upset about taking down Confederate statues were not Democrats. They fucking weren't. It doesn't make sense. And they say it's like a conspiracy theory saying that the party has changed because a lot of people don't realize that, or maybe they don't want to admit to it. They're like, we're the party of Lincoln. Lincoln freed the slaves and hoorah. But the amount of black people within the Trump administration or support among Trump supporters is just very minimal. It did grow a little bit during the last election, but it's still extremely minimal. And they want to skip over a certain part of history. They want to skip over the civil rights movement, when everything started to shift. And they do that with so many issues, not just with history. They don't care about the facts. They care about being right. It's about being right. I remember I was arguing with a Trump supporter once. Well, he was more arguing, and I just gave up because I felt like it wasn't going anywhere. He was like, "So I'm right. See, I'm right. I'm right. I'm right." So it was more about being validated. It was
Yeah.
more about feeling right than actually being right. They don't give a fuck if they're right. They don't care if they're right. They want to feel like they're right. And that's the problem. You can't fix that for some people. Some people are smart enough to say, okay, this isn't what I bought into. And they might not be a full-on progressives or a full-on Democrat or anything like that, but they're able to shift. They're able to make that connection. But there's a big chunk of them that I just don't believe no matter what happens, they're going to change from Daddy Trump.
It's just, and then what happens like when he's gone, right? Like, they have to admit reality, right? Like, I have to believe that there's some of them who know he's very ill. Like, my grandmother had congestive heart failure, and she has every symptom that he has: the swollen ankles, the bruises on the hands. And yeah, okay, she lived 8 years with it, but it wasn't 8 good years. And she was living in as stress free of a life as you possibly could. So I don't imagine that you never want to say, oh, he's only got so many months left, because I don't know. I'm not a doctor. The same time, it's like he's not batting 1,000 either. He's on his way out, I think is what I'm trying to say. Like you can see he's not doing well. So what are you gonna do when he's gone? Like you can't he's not gonna get martyred, right? He's not gonna get killed by some liberal activist. He's just gonna go off with a whimper. And I mean, is that gonna be the MAGA movement? Is it just gonna be like, yeah, okay, it existed, and then they're gonna walk away from it? I don't know. It's just a weird situation.
I think there's a few different ways it could go, you know. I mean, well, at least I like to think that Trumpism will gradually die off after he's gone, whether it be the end of his term or what have you. But there's also a part of me that sees him sort of grooming his like family members even around him. You've seen Republicans talk about, oh, I want Trump Jr. to, not Trump Jr. What's the fucker's name?
Don
Uh,
Jr.
Don
That
Jr. Yeah,
saves it, yeah.
same shit, right? Or Barron or maybe his daughter, but they want the Trump administration to continue in some form or fashion. And I kind of don't think that's going to happen. I think that is one possible way it could go, and we could get stuck with the same bullshit longer than we expect.
I didn't see the Republican Party splitting in half. I kind of see that classic, the people who view themselves as classic Republicans splitting off from like the Trump sycophant side of it, the conspiracy. I don't know that the Republican Party, I don't know. Part of me thinks this is kind of like a weird time where like parties are kind of realigning and you're going to have this party structure where the Democrats end up becoming a more progressive party and the Republicans are going to be fractured and be everywhere between like center to like far right, but they're going to struggle to get a coalition together. So I don't know. It just feels like it's a really weird time politically. Like you can kind of see the lack of influence from MAGA. Like you can kind of feel it pulling away, and then it's just that's it, and then what's left of the Republican Party. And then it feels like the Democrats are moving in more progressive directions. I hope that's true.
Well, I mean, I think we are seeing a shift in some form or fashion, but I think the Republican Party is split to an extent. I think the people that are engaged in the political party are split, but there's different layers of people. I mean, you have the diehard Republicans that are going to vote no matter what. And then you have the ones that, like, I'm a Republican, but if you say the right thing to me, I could potentially vote another direction. And you have the same with Democrats. There's Democrats that are diehard Democrats. They're going to vote as long as you have a D next to their name. But then there's also Democrats that'll sway a little bit if you say the right thing. I don't know where we're heading. It's a very hard thing to predict what's next. I think the midterms, that's what I'm thinking about right now. And I really think it's going to be epic for Democrats, but at the same time, I don't want to be complacent either because there's been so many times where I thought it was going to go a certain way and it fucking didn't. I didn't think we were going to have Trump again, honestly.
I remember like I woke up and I was about to have a hip surgery. Well, it was a few months away, but we knew my hip was bad, so I was sleeping like in a weird bed type situation. I couldn't sleep, so I'm watching election results. And when they called it for Trump, it was like 2 in the morning here, and it like just killed me. I'm like, what the fuck did you not see the first time? Like, what did he not check for you the first time that made you reject that? Although the I guess the one gleaming light I have right now is I don't know if you saw that video from CPAC where Matt Schlapp came out and said, if Democrats get elected, you're going to have an impeachment hearing. Is that what you want? And the crowd's like, yeah. And he's like, whoa, wait a minute. No. Hey, let's try that again. Get some coffee to the crowd. Like your own people are like, yeah, actually, we kind of would like to see impeachment hearings at
I don't
this
know if they
point.
were listening though. They're probably just droning off. You think that they really wanted to see him impeached? I mean, I'm sure that there are some that want to see him impeached, but
I mean, let's take the more innocent thing. They weren't paying attention. So you're not engaged in a political convention enough to hear the speaker like and actually synthesize what they're saying. Like that to me, even in the most innocent connotation that people just didn't weren't paying attention, like, yeah, like your movement is so fractured and no one cares. They're just here for the party.
I think they were probably, focused more on their grinder date that evening.
It's hilarious to me too, like how many times like anytime like a conservative thing goes to a major city, grinder crashes in that area, and you're like,
I'm never gonna get
all
tired
right.
of joking about that shit. It never gets old for me. It doesn't. But I mean, parties change. Shit, Obama used to be against gay marriage. He was not for same-sex marriage originally. It took him a minute to come around. Democrats haven't always been as, I guess, progressive as you would think they are now. And even the party as a whole isn't really that progressive. I would say they're more moderate. Then they like to be in the moderate spot because they feel like being moderate wins. And I think that there is some truth to that. But if you get somebody too progressive, they feel like you just chop off a certain amount of the base. But I don't think that's necessarily true. I think a progressive candidate could win very strongly because progressives are the type that won't vote for you if their candidate isn't put up there. I know a lot of Bernie supporters that when Bernie wasn't the nominee, they're like, well, fuck it, I'm not voting in the general election, or I'm going to vote for somebody completely opposite. I know Bernie supporters that voted for Trump, which is crazy to me. What I'm trying to get at is the party's more ready for a progressive than I think people realize. I honestly think a progressive candidate, in my opinion, is very winnable. I don't think the Democratic Party has figured that out. But I mean, look at somebody like Mamdani. I think he did amazing. I hope he does amazing in what he actually accomplishes, because that'll, I know I've said it before, but I think that will be a defining because everybody's watching. Everybody's
Hmm.
because he has some very bold progressive policies like I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. Like we talked about Obama when he first got elected and he was talking about taking the troops out of Iraq, and then he got in office and he was like, "Wait, there's a lot more moving parts than I realized, and it's not as simple as that." And maybe we need to hold back. We can scale down the troops a little bit, but we can't completely pull out or else we'll look like a bunch of idiots. So I think it's different being on the outside and saying you're going to do something and from actually implementing it. And people get on to AOC for that all the time because at first she didn't work with your moderate Democrats nearly as much as she does now. But I also think now that she's in the seat and she's been there for a while, she realizes that, okay, in order to get some shit done, in order to get shit passed, I need people to actually fucking vote on it that aren't me, you know? And people give her shit for that, but understand. I understand her. I understand why she is that way. And I don't know. I'm rambling now.
No, I mean, I think that the moment calls for a bold step of policy ideals, right? You can no longer run as it's been since like, gosh, I was in Iraq in this '08, we were all running on the economy, and then it just became I'm not X or I'm not Y, and now it requires you to have to say a bold policy perspective, right? I think that does make it more attractive when you can say to people, hey, look, I'm willing to open up Medicare to you if you're working in the gig economy or you're working at a job, where you're working 40 hours a week, but health insurance isn't as affordable or is affordable, let's open up Medicare to those people, right? Like you can talk to people and say, I'm going to put a tax on corporations that make X amount of money per year, and every dollar after that is going to be taxed at this rate to help open up Medicare for you, to help fund government subsidized affordable housing. Like these are not hard concepts. But I think for so long, Democrats have been so worried about that label of socialist or socialism and have run from it because of the ways that the right has connected that to communism. And even more now, you can just say, this is the same thing that Europe has. This is the same thing that Scandinavia has. We're not talking about going to like Stalinist Russia and having gulags. That's ridiculous. We're talking about making sure you have access to healthcare, access to housing, access to food, the basic necessities of life. That's not dangerous. That's just decent. And I think that if Democrats were to run on the decent, not dangerous idea, you'd have a lot more wins, especially in areas where you don't think you would. Because I think people are really clamoring for someone who's got an idea, who's got a dream, and who wants to reach for that, right? People don't want a humdrum, candidate like the devil you know versus the devil you don't. Like if you're coming in a red district and you're running as a Democrat, I would come out swinging. I'm not going to talk about my opponent at all. I'm going to talk about how in Missouri, the Republican Party is in a 30-year supermajority, and 90% of your school is going to be 4 days a week by the end of this school year. So now they've increased your childcare costs because you've got an extra day that you're coming up with childcare. Now you've got to come up with extra things after school because now we don't have funding for after school programs. Those will have to be funded by grants. So it's going to be based on the proximity to places like Columbia, Springfield, Kansas City, and St. Louis. If you're not within, 30 or 40 miles of those places, you don't have after school programs. So now you can start to frame like, hey, look, this isn't dangerous. This is just good business. This is better for you. This is the government working for you versus a corporation. I really feel the party would be much more successful running on that rather than a, moderate Chuck Schumerish, like, I'll just write a sternly worded letter. You're like, okay, great. So nothing. You'll do nothing.
Well, you know what irritates me is talking about not having enough money for healthcare, money for Social Security, money for this, money for that. But somehow we fucking have money to fucking bomb Iran, to set up a blockade in the Strait of Hormuz, to do all these fucking things that are so much more than that. And you're telling me that we don't have money for single payer, we don't have money for this or that. It's such horseshit. It really is. If Doge really gave a shit, they'd find a way to make it happen, but they don't. I don't even think Doge is meant to fucking really do anything. I think it's just to make people feel like they're doing something. And I don't feel like they're
It's like
accomplishing anything.
masturbating. Yeah, it's like masturbating. It's just I'm here to feel good for a moment, and now that the moment's passed, we can move on, and we don't have to acknowledge the lives we ruined. It's not like you have to sit there and say like, "Hey, we trashed all these careers." It's like, "Yeah, all right, we're done. All right, and who's going to clean up? Because it's not going to be me."
A
Uh,
Democrat, probably.
so I have a frame from the when Obama got elected from the Onion, their front page, where it says, "Country is finally shitty enough to make progress." Like, and I think we're getting to that point again. Like the Republicans have finally driven the country so far into a shitter that we have the ability now to say, "Hey, look, all right, we're now going to we're now going to elect a Democrat." If I was AOC, I would be this the iron's hot run because you're going to get elected because the country's going to be in such a shit shape by 2028 that no one's going to give a shit that you're brown and no one's going to give a shit that you're female. They're going to give a shit that their electric bills they have to choose between food and electricity, or that the country is probably in a deep recession at that point. Like, run, girl, run, get into that office.
Well, the last several recessions we've been in were all under Republicans. And all that does is give Democrats room to come in and make things better. Like you can say that Biden didn't do a great job if you want to. And sure, there were some areas that he could have done better, but he did get us out of a recession. You could complain about Obama all you want, but he did get us out of Bush's recession. And Clinton did a fucking amazing job with the economy, obviously. He's got some other issues, but you know, talking about economics, he did a good job. It seems like they're just good at fucking things up and leaving it for Democrats to look good. I feel like they could just stop, think about what they're going to do, and make a better path for Republicans. If they really were the party of the Constitution, which they're fucking not anymore. They used to be, but they are fucking not. You can't have somebody like Trump talking about the Constitution not mattering and then still be the party of the Constitution. You cannot do both. You absolutely fucking cannot. And who ignores the separation of powers altogether. You're not the fucking party of the Constitution anymore. I don't know what the fuck you're party of. You're the party of Trump. That's about it. And there are the onesie and twosie people that are breaking off, and I fucking hope it's more. I think it will be. I hope that after 2028 or hopefully sooner, we won't have to deal with this asshole anymore. But
I don't know. I kind of feel like I don't think he lives long after his second term if he makes it through the full term. Like if he lives through it, he just is not the beacon of health that you would think to see for someone 79 about to turn 80. I do think though that there's a bunch of evergreen things that I would put up there. Lindsey Graham's tweet from 2016 before Trump won the nomination that said, "If we nominate Trump, we will get destroyed and we will deserve it." I just hang it in the lube because I think that's what's coming. I think that the Republicans have put themselves in such a corner. They're just isolating, even growing their base. I think that you've seen them shed political power and political capital, and then their base has shrunk. The war with Iran, I mean, my goodness, there was a couple of Trump stores, Trump clothing stores, and around here that apparently after the war in Iran couldn't make their ends meet. There's one in Illinois, close to probably a few hours from here, that just couldn't make their ends meet, and now they had to close. And you're kind of like, look, man, your own people who are putting your face on their body are walking away. I kind of hope that this is the end of that movement, that this is the beginning of the end. The Titanic has struck the iceberg and it's taken on water. Like, let's hope that's what it is.
Well, I sure do, man. Well, I think this has been a very productive talk, and I'm really looking to see where things go, especially after everything with Orban and seeing how the party handles it.
Yep, I think it's going to be an interesting week, so we'll see how it goes.
If you did like the episode, I do want to encourage you to subscribe to our channel. It supports us. I'm Kevin Price,
Kevin Reed.
and thank you for joining us again on Tactical Pause.